After an injury, has your head ever felt heavy? And I'm talking a bowling ball on a toothpick kind of heavy. Maybe you've noticed at work you constantly need to prop your head up on your elbows. Or it might even be more subtle than that. It might be something like wearing scarves or high-collared shirts because that pressure on your neck seems to alleviate some of the tightness you feel. This is the classic bobblehead sensation, and it is the #1 sign that you have upper cervical instability. After a whiplash injury, most doctors, especially if they're old school doctors, are going to tell you that you just have tight muscles and that you need to stretch more often. But if you're having this heavy head sensation, I have a massive warning for you. Stop stretching your neck immediately. Stretching is very likely the thing that is actually keeping you in pain. Today, I'm going to go over the Loose Seatbelt Theory on whiplash and show you why that tight neck is actually your body's attempt to protect itself. Today's story is about a man named Gary. Back in high school, Gary was a high-performance athlete until he took a helmet-to-helmet collision playing football. After suffering that whiplash injury, Gary had a persistent nagging fatigue in his neck. He went to multiple doctors, getting multiple sets of imaging, and a lot of physical therapists even recommended for him to continue stretching those tight upper trap muscles. What a lot of well-intentioned doctors, physical therapists, and chiropractors will do is stretch and aggressively massage this tight area. But if you've ever been in a situation like Gary, you know exactly what happens. You get relief for about an hour, and then the symptoms come back with a vengeance. His migraines would come back. That sense of dizziness and brain fog would come back with a vengeance. And his head felt heavier than it did before going to see the physical therapist or chiropractor. One of the big things that I worry about in my practice is when a patient comes here and they've already been to see a physical therapist and a chiropractor. Because what this tells me is that the traditional approaches to helping muscle tightness aren't working. So rather than thinking I'm magical and trying the exact same thing that other doctors had attempted, we did a simple test for ligament laxity in his alar ligaments. Now these are the ligaments at the top of your cervical spine that literally hold your head to the rest of your body. And what we found was that because of that helmet-to-helmet collision that he had back in high school, Gary's ligaments were very flexible. Or another way of saying this is that his cervical spine had a lot of ligament laxity. How this translates into his symptoms is that Gary's neck muscles weren't tight because they were trying to hurt him. They were working a double shift. They were doing their mechanical function of rotating and tilting his head, but then they were also functioning the same way that his alar ligaments were supposed to be functioning, firing nonstop to keep his skull attached to his spine. And this is super important and surprisingly a very common mistake, because if we have ligament laxity, if we already have too much motion in that part of your spine, the last thing we want to do is increase mobility without first increasing joint stability. But this is exactly why after you have a whiplash injury, your brain goes into panic mode. And in panic mode, your brain tells all the muscles that support your cervical spine to go into lockdown, which means that your upper traps, your levator scap, and your suboccipital muscles are going to be permanently contracted in an attempt to make up for the lack of stability from your alar ligament. And this is exactly why your head starts to feel so heavy. These muscles really aren't made for endurance, but now they're firing 24/7 trying to hold your head up. When you start to stretch those muscles so that they quit contracting, you are trying to override your body's defense mechanism. Think about it like unbuckling the seat belts of your car while you're still driving. In your skeleton, we pretty much have just two soft tissues that do a bulk of holding the whole thing together. Muscles, which attach to bones and allow for active movement, and then we have ligaments, which don't contract, but they are a lot stronger. Meaning, whereas a muscle ensures that a joint can move, a ligament makes sure that the joint doesn't move too far. Now, as you can imagine, this is pretty important for your head because 1, we don't want it falling off, but 2, we also don't want it bumping into your spinal cord, pinching nerves coming out from the base of your skull, or cutting any arteries or veins coming in and out of your brain. It's all super important stuff that we don't want to get damaged. With a high velocity whiplash injury, and those can come from car accidents, it can be a head-to-head collision, it could be from going to a concert and rocking out too hard in the mosh pit. Those ligaments can get overstretched from that quick forward and back motion, or they can get sheared from the quick side-to-side motion. And unlike muscles, which have a very good blood supply, ligaments don't. And what that means for you and recovery comes down to a poor blood supply translates into a longer recovery time. And in a lot of cases, with ligaments especially, once they're damaged, they'll never be 100% again. And I'm not saying that to be overdramatic, it's just the original tissue is always going to be stronger than scar tissue. But this is exactly why after you have a whiplash injury, your brain goes into panic mode. And in panic mode, your brain tells all the muscles that support your cervical spine to go into lockdown, which means that your upper traps, your levator scap, and your suboccipital muscles are going to be permanently contracted in an attempt to make up for the lack of stability from your alar ligament. And this is exactly why your head starts to feel so heavy. These muscles really aren't made for endurance, but now they're firing 24/7 trying to hold your head up. When you start to stretch those muscles so that they quit contracting, you are trying to override your body's defense mechanism. Think about it like unbuckling the seat belts of your car while you're still driving. This is why traditional approaches, whether they're physical therapy or chiropractic adjustments for whiplash, don't have good outcomes. If a practitioner just cracks your neck and even goes the extra mile of stretching those tight muscles, they're actually compounding the injury. Likewise, for you at home, if you're constantly finding yourself stretching your neck or self-adjusting and cracking your neck, not only are you probably adjusting the joints that are already hypermobile and further contributing to the problem, but you're reinforcing the neural pathway that says this part of your body is moving a whole lot. You need to tighten it down even more. If you feel the constant need to crack your neck, we don't have a mobility issue, we have a stability issue. What you're doing is you're treating the stiffness as if that is the problem. It is a problem, but it is a symptom, not an actual cause. The cause is a structure that's moving too much. So, if we actually want a permanent solution, we need to work on bracing. If your head feels heavy and you have been stretching and mobilizing your neck and it still feels like a bobblehead, it's time to change your strategy. We need to go from a mobility mindset to a stability approach. Now, the first step that you can take to get a move on this is to download the free cervical stability do's and don'ts checklist down in the description. It's absolutely free. It's a PDF that's going to show you 5 of the most commonly prescribed stretches and exercises for your cervical spine that are actually causing worsening of your pain. But then I went an extra step and I included 3 exercises that'll help to increase stability in your neck. Second, for those of you who notice you have loose seatbelts and some ligament laxity in your cervical spine and want to work on building that permanent internal brace, I have an entire dedicated instability protocol built into the Whiplash Recovery Blueprint. In there, we're working through isometric contractions of the cervical spine while also working on the deep neck flexors to enhance endurance. These are the exercises that allow the big muscles on the outside of your spine to relax because the deep internal muscles are finally doing their jobs properly. But please, if nothing else, quit stretching a loose joint and let's start working on building some actual neck stability. I'm Dr. Beck. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video if it was helpful for you, and I'll see you in the next one.